She only came to watch her son graduate. But something in the crowd caught the SEAL commander's eye, and for a moment, the ceremony itself seemed to falter. The bleachers at Trident Bay Training Grounds, Virginia, were packed shoulder to shoulder. Families waved flags, cameras clicked, and the morning sun gleamed off rows of perfectly pressed dress uniforms. Yet in the third row, one woman sat so still she almost vanished into the crowd. Claire Donovan, 48 years old, in a simple blue dress and cardigan, looked like any other proud mother fighting back tears. Her son, Ryan Donovan, was about to take his place among the Navy's most elite. What no one else realized, not even Ryan, was that his mother had once worn the trident in a way few could imagine. For nearly a decade, she had hidden the truth beneath rolled sleeves and quiet humility. But that morning, the past was waiting for her, woven into the very fabric of the ceremony. You're watching Stories Unseen: Hidden Heroes, Untold Missions. Drop a comment with your city and hit subscribe for more. The graduation field shimmered with anticipation. 19 men, the last survivors from an original class of over 150, stood in perfect formation, the culmination of months of agony, trials designed to break all but the strongest. Ryan was one of them, chest out, jaw tight, nerves locked behind discipline. To the crowd, he looked like every other newly minted SEAL. To Claire, he still looked like the boy she had raised alone after his father, Captain Daniel Donovan, never returned from Afghanistan. Her hands gripped a small flag so tightly the fabric trembled. She had worked endless double shifts as a trauma nurse, always hiding the part of herself forged in fire. 5 deployments as a combat medic with SEAL teams across Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Horn of Africa. The woman Ryan knew as Mom had once been Doc Donovan, a name whispered with reverence in special operations circles. But Ryan had never been told. She had wanted him to find his own path, unshackled from her reputation. As the brass band fell silent, Commander Ethan Marshall stepped to the podium, a legend in his own right. He surveyed the graduates with sharp eyes, pride heavy in his voice. His words carried the weight of sacrifice, brotherhood, and the SEAL warrior ethos. Claire tried to lose herself in those words, but memories pressed in the dust of Fallujah, the metallic scent of blood, the desperate radio calls for medevac. She blinked them away, focusing on Ryan's broad shoulders and steady stance. And then, as Ryan's name was called, Claire lifted a trembling hand to brush a tear from her cheek. Her sleeve slipped back just slightly, revealing the faintest edge of old ink, a fragment of insignia, a whisper of numbers. On the podium, Commander Marshall's eyes narrowed. His words faltered, his jaw tightened. He had seen something that didn't belong at an ordinary graduation. But he said nothing. Not yet. Claire Donovan had sat through countless ceremonies like this, but never as a mother. She knew the weight of what her son had endured, months of trials designed to break every candidate until only 19 remained. Ryan had survived them all. Pride swelled in her chest, but fear pressed in too. She had walked this road herself, embedded as a combat medic with SEAL teams across Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Horn of Africa. She knew what awaited him beyond the crisp uniforms and polished speeches. Chaos, silence broken by gunfire, and choices that branded a soul forever. On the stage, Commander Ethan Marshall spoke with the cadence of a man who had lived every word: sacrifice, brotherhood, the unforgiving standard of the trident. Claire's grip on her flag tightened. She had heard those same words years earlier, not from a podium, but in the dirt, over radio static. And then Marshall's voice faltered. His eyes swept the crowd and fixed on her. His gaze sharpened, lingered. Claire felt her stomach twist. For nearly a decade, she had been only Nurse Donovan in Norfolk, careful sleeves hiding the ink etched into her skin. That tattoo wasn't decoration. It was identity. As Ryan's name echoed across the loudspeakers, Claire raised her hand to brush a tear away. The sleeve slipped back just enough. A glimpse of black ink caught the sun. Marshall froze, his jaw clenched, recognition cutting across his features. He knew that mark. He had seen it in a place no one forgets. The microphone crackled in sudden silence. Papers set aside. Marshall stepped down from the podium. Confusion rippled through the bleachers. Claire's pulse pounded. After years of anonymity, her past was striding toward her with measured steps. He stopped in front of her. "Ma'am," he said, voice low but firm, "would you stand?" Every eye turned. Claire hesitated. Standing meant exposure. Standing meant the end of the wall she had built between who she had been and who her son thought she was. But she had no choice. Slowly, she rose. The cardigan slipped, the tattoo revealed in full. Marshall's face shifted from hardness to reverence. His voice boomed across the field. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet Hospital Corpsman First Class Claire Donovan, United States Navy. Retired. Doc Donovan." The name spread like a ripple through the crowd. Murmurs turned to stunned silence. A figure spoken of in SEAL circles with something close to myth was suddenly standing in their midst, disguised until this moment in the dress of an ordinary mother. Ryan's composure cracked. His jaw tightened. His eyes locked on his mother as though she were a stranger. He had never heard that name before. The graduation was no longer just a ceremony. It was about to become something else entirely. Commander Ethan Marshall faced the audience again, his voice stronger now, resonant with memory. "You know her as a quiet guest this morning, but I know her as the medic who refused to let us die." The rows of families leaned forward. Young SEALs stood taller, instinctively bracing under the weight of what was being revealed. Marshall's eyes dropped briefly, then lifted. "Fallujah, Highway Phoenix, 2007. Our convoy was shredded by IEDs, pinned in open ground. Machine guns poured down from the ridges. 11 of us were bleeding out. I thought we were finished, but one medic, Claire Donovan, moved through fire for 5 straight hours, wounded herself. She packed wounds, ran IVs, performed surgery in the dirt, called in medevacs under fire. None of us should have lived. We did because she refused to break." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ryan's heart thudded, each word rewriting his understanding of the woman who had raised him. Marshall's voice cracked with conviction. "Son, your mother isn't just a nurse. She's the reason men like me are alive to stand here today." Ryan's breath caught. He searched her face, begging for an explanation. Claire stood steady, though her eyes carried the quiet burden of being unmasked. She had hidden this not out of shame, but because she wanted Ryan's choice to be his own, not her legacy's shadow. Marshall raised his hand to calm the whispers. "Doc Donovan set the standard of battlefield medicine. She ran toward fire when everyone else crawled back. She didn't just save lives, she showed us what courage looks like." Then he turned back to the graduates, his voice carrying across the silent grounds. "Look at her. This is the kind of warrior you pray is beside you when things go wrong. And today, her son joins your brotherhood." The crowd erupted at last, but Ryan's chest tightened. Everything he thought he knew about his mother had unraveled in front of hundreds of witnesses. Marshall lowered his voice and faced her directly. "Doc, do you remember me?" Claire's lips parted, her eyes soft with memory. Slowly, she nodded. The face of a young lieutenant in Fallujah flashed back, bleeding out, barely conscious, stitched together by her shaking hands until evacuation came. She remembered. The commander straightened, his voice carrying once more, "Graduates, families, this is no ordinary guest. This is a legend standing among us. And her story isn't finished." The weight of his words pressed down on the crowd. Ryan felt his pulse hammer in his ears. If the world now knew who his mother truly was, what else was about to be revealed? The graduation had already shifted from ceremony to history. Commander Ethan Marshall returned to the podium, his voice steady but charged with awe. This morning, we celebrate not only 19 new SEALs, but the brotherhood that raised them, the warriors, the medics, the families who bore the weight of sacrifice. Today, we remember that the trident is not just a badge. It's a promise. His eyes never left Claire Donovan. "Doc, would you join me up here?" She hesitated. She had spent her life avoiding the spotlight, preferring the shadows where work mattered more than recognition. But Marshall's tone left no room for retreat. Slowly, she rose and walked forward, her plain dress a quiet contrast to rows of sharp uniforms. Small in stature, but her presence transformed the air. Silence deepened. Respect grew heavy. Marshall pulled out his phone, voice solemn. "I want you to hear the words written into our nation's record." He read Claire Donovan's Navy Cross citation, a testimony not of medals, but of grit, the convoy torn apart by IEDs, the storm of gunfire, the shrapnel embedded in her side, and the 11 men she refused to let die. For 5 relentless hours she stitched, packed, evacuated, and commanded, bleeding herself but never breaking. Every man survived. By the end, the field was still. No applause, no movement, only the weight of those words pressing into everyone present. Ryan's throat tightened. His mother was no longer just the figure who had raised him. She was a name written into SEAL history. Marshall turned, offering her the microphone. Claire held it like she once held a field radio, firm. Steady. No hesitation. "Gentlemen," she said. Voice clear. "You've conquered the hardest training in the world. But buds is not the end, it's the beginning. Being a SEAL isn't about the miles you've run or the weights you've lifted. It's about the man beside you. It's about choosing what's right over what's easy. And it's about never leaving anyone behind." The 19 graduates leaned forward. This wasn't theory. It was the voice of someone who had lived it, who had bled for it. She turned to her son. "Ryan, I'm proud of you. Your father would be, too. But never forget you wear the trident not for yourself, but for every teammate. Every family who prays their warrior comes home. That is the weight, and that is the honor." The crowd erupted, but Claire slipped quietly back to her seat. She wanted no spotlight, only the relief that her son had earned his place. The ceremony closed, but for Ryan, one truth burned brighter than the sun overhead. His mother was not just Mom. She was Doc Donovan, and her story was only beginning to unfold when the graduates were dismissed to their families. Ryan went straight to her. His face was pale, his jaw set. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" Claire smiled softly. "Because this had to be your decision." "I didn't want you chasing my reputation. I wanted you chasing your own calling, but you're a legend. Commander Marshall said you saved his life. I did my job. Ryan, the same job you'll do. It isn't about medals, it's about the man beside you. You'll learn that soon enough." He swallowed hard. "How many lives did you save? I never kept count," she said quietly. "That's not why we serve." Marshall approached, his composure cracking. "Doc, not a month goes by. I don't think of Fallujah. You didn't just save lives, you showed us what courage looks like." Claire's reply was gentle. "You would have done the same." Marshall shook his head. "Maybe, but you actually did it." His eyes shifted to Ryan. "Son, if you want to know what a SEAL should be, look no further than your mother." Only one more voice stepped forward. Master Chief Robert Chin, a veteran of Iraq. His hand clasped Claire's firmly. "Doc, your protocols, your evacuation drills, we still teach them. You didn't just save lives, you changed the way we save them." Ryan's awe deepened. His mother hadn't only been a medic, she had been a builder of legacies. As the sun dipped low, Ryan asked the question heavy in his chest. "Are you worried about me, about what's ahead?" Her eyes softened. Of course I'm worried. You're my son, but I'm proud. 2. You've chosen a life of purpose. That doesn't make the risk less, but it makes it meaningful. Your father died with honor. If fate calls you the same way, you'll stand for the same principles. That's not easy, Ryan, but it's everything. He embraced her, for the first time fully grasping the burden she had carried in silence all these years. 6 months later, Ryan deployed with Task Force Viper, carrying both his father's sacrifice and his mother's courage into battle. And though Claire now worked in a trauma bay in Norfolk, mentoring young corpsmen, speaking to new medics, she never truly left the fight. Her tattoo, once hidden, had become a bridge, a story inked into skin that reminded every operator and every patient heroes often hide in plain sight. Because courage isn't about uniforms. It isn't about medals. It's about the willingness to risk everything so someone else might live. Claire Donovan had proven that on the battlefield, and every day, in scrubs instead of fatigues. She proved it again. So the story ends where it began, a mother sitting quietly, unseen, until the world remembered who she really was. Stories unseen, because some battles and some heroes should never stay in the dark. Hit subscribe to follow the next story.